Germany
ask you
weren't
another
killing
question.
Germans.
Is suicide bombing a resistance?
No, it's wrong. It's according.
Okay,
It's wrong to the
so
Quran.
why is
It's
it
wrong
that
to
only
suicide bomb.
Palestinians in the 1990s, which I remember every day in school, we had to say prayers for those who were killed in bombings in buses. How is it that that's the only ethnic group that promotes suicide bombing amongst all the world?
What are you talking about? Who promotes
No one is
suicide
promoting
Yeah,
bombing?
of course,
suicide
you get
bombing.
paid.
Who promotes-
Yes,
Who
you get
promotes-
paid.
But who? I
What I
don't
mean,
understand.
whatever.
How
the
is it
Hamas
that-
or the
how is it
PLO,
that
you
Islam
know,
is
what
a
is it?
Let him answer the question. Ask the
Islam
question.
promotes suicide bombing?
I was there when
Not
I
Hamas,
was
it's
there
the
when
whole-
Palestinian
there's
Authority
the
actually
Palestinian
does.
Authority promoted it, and you get
The Palestinian
$10,000
Authority
a
promotes
month
suicide
per
bombing?
person who committed suicide.
I'd like to see
the
that
head
stat,
of Hamas,
actually.
by the way, I think who was the lady who was
Some
the
of
head of
that's
Hamas,
true.
whatever, that she said I was
not.
proud that
No?
my
No, it's
5
not.
kids were martyrs.
Yeah.
She's saying she's part of the Hamas.
No, but I can quote
forgot
Daniela
what her name
Wise.
is.
I
Saddam
can
is
quote a
right.
lot of Israelis that are like the Hilltop Youth that we need to eradicate
you-
all
But the
Palestinians.
way-
Are you
men
rejecting-
careers.
are you
verbiage is
rejecting
different
his
than
point?
action. Verbiage is different than
Hilltop
action.
Youth literally burnt an 18-month-old
listen,
alive
listen, but
in a
it's-
village.
we're talking
What
about-
did the
okay,
18-month-old do?
You're making a very bad comparison.
Why?
You're talking about micro crimes
Not
to a
micro.
macro education. There's a macro education
Okay.
that amongst, again, extremist jihadists
Cool.
that we know even in Saudi Arabia, they said that this is a problem that the West is going to have huge problems with because they don't know
'Cause you
how to deal
created
with
it.
it.
'Cause you
right?
created it.
Okay, but where does it come
But
from?
where's your-
It comes from...
Didn't Biden say in 1986, was it, that he said Israel is the best billion-dollar investment? If there was no Israel, there will be an Israel.
create
You're-
one.
I don't know
Explain
what
that one to
means.
me.
I don't know what
America
that-
benefits.
I don't know what that
Of course,
verbiage means.
I can
I know
understand
this
It's
very
literally
simple.
word for word
I know
what he
very
said as
simple.
to how.
You guys say occupation. I don't know
Yeah.
what occupation there is. All I know is that wall stands
So
there.
wait, you don't agree that
Once
there's
in,
an
I don't.
occupation?
Of course, it's
So-
not an
so you-
occupation.
so you don't believe in the
How do
ICJ?
they-
What do you-
How are they
what do you-
opening
Can I
up
finish my
electricity?
point?
Put a
Let me
verb.
finish right. You guys don't even explain how it is an occupation.
I would like to
But
explain.
once in, let me explain my
110
point.
checkpoints?
And I'll tell you where
Why are
those
they there?
checkpoints
Why are
come
the
from.
checkpoints
From
there?
suicide bombing. And guess what?
Everyone is
20,000 permits were given to people in Palestine to work in Israel,
Yes.
and about 10 to 15% of them were Hamas agents who took pictures and photos to houses to know where to attack.
Yeah,
this
sure.
is no fact.
Yeah, I
We
agree.
gave opening doors to Palestine. We wanted to create a tri-state
Well, no,
Middle East over
hang
here.
on. Israel
Tri-state
wanted cheap
boroughs.
labor. That's why they were allowed to give
What's the
permits.
difference? We have cheap
They-
labor
they-
here,
they're
and we
making
open
more
the
money.
borders in
No,
America.
because Palestinians
There's
are
no
all different
difference. Come on,
jobs.
guys. At least have
The
some.
Palestinians are cheap labor in
I
other
wanna
Arab
understand what you're
countries.
saying here, because,
so are Syrians.
Sure.
Syrians
you're
do cheap
talking
labor in
about-
Lebanon.
Yes.
They're the
Hold on,
Mexicans
hold
in
on.
Lebanon.
You're talking about
You know that.
suicide bombings. Nat, I just sent you. I just Pew Research. No clue what it says. I just found it. They pulled. Please pull it up. They pulled every single Muslim country and see which countries approve and disapprove of suicide bombings.
Oh wow.
Nat, do you have these stats? Because I actually want to get into.
Really?
Here's what I've realized. We're not.
Let's
We don't
finish.
like
Let's
stats
hear-
now.
let's hear-
Well,
let's
the
hear.
population size, man. There's 7 million Jews in Israel.
Also, everyone
There's
here
90
hates suicide
million
bombing.
in Egypt.
Guys,
There's
what just
90
happened
million
here? I said I'm
people
going to
here.
pull up stats
This is
and
gonna
start
look
You
really
guys
freaking
been
out.
asking for
No one's
facts
being
the whole
foul.
night.
It's just we're all
Hey guys, I'm going to show some
Well, I
stats.
hear you
No, not stats.
Do it. Pull up stats. Pull
What
up
are we
stats.
talking about?
Pull up stats,
We
baby.
don't like.
I want to pull up.
I've been using
I
nothing
want to
but
pull
facts,
up a
honestly.
few stats here,
stats,
guys.
baby.
Are you guys comfortable
stats?
with seeing stats?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
go ahead.
I'm
I
not
haven't
saying-
even
None of us
told you what
support
stats
suicide
they
bombing.
are.
No one here supports suicide bombing.
Show it the car.
Okay,
show
go
it the
ahead.
card.
My
Yeah.
question
I
was
want-
different. Is suicide bombing considering resistance?
No, not in my opinion.
Okay, I'm asking because he mentioned it. And I agree with some
Are
points.
the
that you
mics
said.
still
I
on?
want to go over 3 things because I said earlier, listen, if there's anything I am, FTM. Does anybody know what that means?
No.
For the masses.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Does anybody not think that money makes the world go around?
Of course
Yes, it does.
Okay, it does. You talked about the reason the biggest destabilizing force in the Middle East, you didn't even name a country, you just named whoever's funding it.
Well,
cool, all good.
yes.
Don't need an opinion, you already gave it. But I want to follow the money because I actually think there's a major problem with the following the money. Let's see how this works. So suicide bombings you brought up. Do you have any of these stats? Okay. So, and then I want to understand about, do you understand what GDP per capita means?
Yes.
Scroll down. Okay, there should be stats. I just Googled it, it came up. There should be countries that support suicide bombing and that don't. Keep going. Keep going. Is that it right there? Punch in. I can't see anything.
Can you guys read that screen?
Okay, she can pull this up. We usually have bigger TVs here. Okay. Natalia, what does it say here? Muslim views on suicide bombings.
So
what
I
countries?
know the point is. It's directly correlated to income. So the
countries
richer
are-
countries do less suicide bombing. Yeah, everyone knows.
Oh,
that.
hold on. Not true.
I didn't know that. Actually.
Not true. Pakistan is not a rich country. So Pakistan,
Can we zoom in just a little bit?
yeah,
more? I
Pakistan
can't
is
see.
at
I
the
want to see
bottom.
these stats. Now, if you guys want to argue the stats, have at it. Nat, punch in.
Yes.
So it says that Pakistan, Turkey, and Indonesia on the bottom have the lowest affinity towards suicide bombings.
Yes.
The Palestinian territories
Away from Middle East.
and the Lebanese have the highest.
highest.
Is anyone objecting to these stats?
No. However,
No, I don't need a however. I'm
okay,
just
go
seeing
ahead,
the
go ahead,
stats here.
Go ahead.
Now, you're saying there's a correlation between the amount of money
Yeah.
that a country has.
Yeah, the prosperity that the people in the country have and how likely they're.
So now let's pull up GDP per capita. Because this is actually where all the BS from each side gets negated.
Yes.
So if this is GDP per capita, what is this right here, Nat?
This is the GDP
Okay.
per capita.
GDP per capita. So scroll. So what's the top, Nat? You can talk. What's the top 5, 10 countries?
Top 5 is Monaco, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Bermuda, Ireland, Switzerland, Cayman Islands, Isles of Man.
Keep going.
And then all the way to
Qatar.
we have United
Where's the United States?
Up here.
Okay.
We're up here.
So go all the way to the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
To the bottom. To the bottom.
All the way to the bottom.
Keep going. Keep going. Here we go. Here we go.
And when we get there, can we zoom in, please?
Almost.
Yeah, let's zoom in here. So go to where it ends. Like it should just be the lowest dollar amount.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish we had a bigger
Just
TV,
tell us,
guys.
what is it?
Oh, you found
I don't know.
Right
I,
here.
I'm,
You
Right,
found
here we go,
something
right
agree on
here.
That it's hard
Right
to
here.
see the screen
yes.
and the lights are
There we
going.
go, guys.
You see
Oh, we
it?
agree
So-
on everything. We're
Nat,
going
because we
Zoom in a
can't see
little
this.
Oh.
Okay, scroll
there's
up.
one guide.
Which Middle Eastern countries can we point out? Afghanistan. How much
Afghanistan.
does the average person in Afghanistan make a year?
dog shit.
Yeah, but why?
352.
What's the number?
352.6.
Okay. Keep going up.
Okay.
Syria.
Rafi, can you see this?
Yeah, Syria's right
No,
above
no, no.
it.
Okay,
Syria's right
Syria,
Afghanistan,
Lebanon.
Syrian,
Where's Pakistan on this?
Pakistan. Let's go
Command
find
F.
We
it.
already know that the more
We've
Qatar,
got
Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, they're going to be.
Pakistan's
the
right
highest
here.
down there.
Yeah.
1407 is Pakistan.
Okay, so that almost proves your point wrong. Pakistan is a very poor country and they have low suicide bombings.
Yeah,
Okay.
but what's the poorest country?
Yeah, but I
What's
haven't.
the port of
So
Suicide?
okay, so now go to now go to unemployment.
It's not about. It's
It
not
says
about
lowest
being.
support of suicide bombings, not actual.
It's not being.
bombings.
It's
That's
not
what
about
they
being
say.
poor
okay,
or not
support.
I've never
poor.
seen this
So-
before. I'm just
so-
Support.
There's a
Oh,
there's a
okay.
confounding
See?
variable here that
The
we're not
views.
pointing the finger to. The countries that have the highest rate of suicide bombing are the countries closest to Israel, right? In terms of geographical area. And
Pull
the
up that stat.
right.
Palestinians,
So
Lebanese,
Yeah.
you're
Egypt.
admitting that they just
And the
need
reason
to-
why
Jordan.
You're admitting
Yeah,
that they
all
just
of
need
them
to-
are neighboring Israel.
Okay,
I'll tell
so
you why.
explain,
Okay,
okay.
you guys need to understand something.
Because they're not fighting each
No,
other.
please listen. The sectarian divide that exists in the Middle East is the baby of the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Okay, the Sykes-Picot Agreement is when the French and British betrayed the Arabs behind their back when they promised King Hussein an independent Arab kingdom if they revolted against the Ottomans. They lied to his back and they sliced up his kingdom and split it to France and Britain. Since then, they purposefully did these borders so that there's always going to be sectarian divide. As Lawrence of Arabia put it, a spy who was there, we have successfully divided the Islamic bloc such that it can never reunite. One in three heads, one in Egypt, one in Iraq, and one in, I think, Hijaz, which is modern day Saudi Arabia. So what I'm trying to say is when you look at the instability of the Middle East, when you look at why there's so much radicalization, it is a product of Western intervention. The biggest question is why didn't that exist before? If Muslims are, let's say,
So
radical
you're
per se, just let me finish,
You're
please. Let me
actually
finish.
admitting.
Okay, there were Jews.
You're
Why do you keep saying there weren't
that the
Jews?
radicalization
There were
is because of the
800,000
existence of
Jews in the Levant.
There was
There's
no
no Jewish
country.
rule.
You're-
of
Exactly,
Israel
there's
there.
no
You're
Western-backed
No country. There was
Yes.
no country of Israel there.
Yes.
But
Israel
by
is
the
a
way,
Western
Bukharian Jews have
form.
been buying land.
Just let me
in
finish because you
Jerusalem
cut me
for-
off. You cut me
for
off. So
generations.
as I was saying, the Sykes-Picot.
And there was never a problem, but there were many
Let him finish.
pogroms.
But listen,
Let him
listen.
finish.
I'm trying to connect something. I'm trying to get us to something very interesting. The reason why people have such a lack of affinity towards Israel in the Levant is because Israel represents the Western hand in the region. It represents, as let's say, Biden
it
put it.
doesn't.
Just let
It
me finish.
doesn't. The
Let me
French
finish. What do you
mandate-
mean that was
Hold
made?
on. Aleka, I'm coming right to you after this. Go ahead,
$300
finish this
billion
point.
from
Go
the
ahead.
United
Let me go
States.
after
That's a Western-backed
you have to
region.
go.
Yeah. Okay, so when you see so much, let's say, affinity for suicide bombing, it's almost coming out of an oppression, coming out of like, oh, our hands are locked. We have no other choice. I'm not saying it's right. The Quran goes against suicide, but you can't even kill yourself.
Bigotry of low
Just let me finish.
expectations.
So these countries that have high rates of suicide bombings are also the countries that had the most destabilization, the most Western intervention, the most amount of, let's say, terror
Why aren't
attacked
you
on them
suicide bombers?
between in that region, right? So what I'm saying is the stat may be aligned in terms of money, but it doesn't show that these countries that have the highest rates of suicide bombing are also the countries that have had the most amount of Western intervention being slapped on them and being dropped on them in terms of bombs every day.
That's
okay?
ridiculous.
So Israel...
Educate the kids to bomb themselves.
So I'm understanding this because...
Can I just answer his comment?
Yeah, Alec, I'm coming right to you. Because of Western imperialism,
Correct.
we need to kill ourselves.
No, that's not my argument. Because of
I'm not even joking.
I'll do it logically.
Yeah.
Because of Western
funny.
Western imperialism,
Yes.
nobody's heeding our call. Nobody's heeding our bureaucratic solutions or trying to tell the world to help us. Therefore, we have no choice. Therefore, there's a power vacuum. Someone says, "Oh, I'm gonna help you guys. I'm gonna do this." They support that regime, and that regime commits atrocities like suicide bombing because they look at it as I guess a simple way where they can hide weaponry under their clothes and do something terroristic like that. But what I'm saying is this comes out of the oppression that nobody's heeding the calls of the Syrian people. Nobody came to the aid of the Syrian.
I got to tell you, it's. And
Can I respond to that?
I'm coming right to you.
Yeah.
Tear this argument apart.
Yeah.
I have black friends.
Cool.
Okay, this is a weird metaphor, and they're like, "Nah, man, you gotta understand, like." My great grandparents were slaves, and I was like, yeah, but you were born in fucking '92, bro.
Yeah.
Like you were born during the Clinton administration. Like you watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with me. Like, what are you talking about? Nah, man, we've been oppressed. It's like, well, at what point are you no longer a victim? At what point do you just take authority for yourself and say, listen, we got to make a change?
Well,
like Michael Jackson said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I got to make a change. It's you. At what point, whoever it is, whether it's blacks in America, whether it's Muslims in the Middle East, say, listen, we got to figure this thing out. Because you know who feels bad for you? Nobody. Nobody cares.
They've tried.
80% of the people.
That's the Arab Spring. That's the Arab Spring.
Let me answer this
Don't care about your problem. 20% are glad that you have them. At some point, the excuses got to stop for everyone, and you need to look at yourself and look at your own people and say, what can we do better? Instead of saying, they did it. Western imperialism, Israel. By the way, it works across all ideologies, across all religions. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, what can you do? Rather than they're the bad guy, they're the bad guy, they're the bad guy.
Are you saying
what
they
can
didn't
I do?
try?
Do you think black people
Can I answer this question before
before
he responds? Can I answer the point that he made?
Go ahead, Alika, go ahead.
Okay, so listen, you can't say that this is the result of Western imperialism unless you're going to say that about every single country that was made out of the same. Can I speak now? Made
Jake,
out of the
mute the
same
mics while she
Western
talks. Go ahead.
imperialism. Which okay, let me just please every single
Go ahead.
time. I
This is all
can't get
you.
a word in sentence. Okay. The French mandate created Syria and Lebanon. Syria didn't want that. Syria wanted all of Lebanon, okay? But they exchanged. They agreed to this land for mutual sovereignty. They forewent maximalism. Not just Syria and Lebanon, created out of Western imperialism, right? It was also Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi, UAE, all of the countries at the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Now you say that what happened here was that there was a divide of these Arab heads of or whatever, right? You're actually confessing to the same point, right? You're actually telling on yourself, because the reality is that there's been two ideologies that have tried to destroy Israel since the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. That is pan-Arabism and that is pan-Islamism. And both of these ideologies are based on a supremacist worldview that all of this region must be either one contiguous Arab region or one contiguous Islamic region. And the reality is that that is not reflective of the indigenous populations of the Middle Eastern people that were colonized by Islam, okay? Christians exist there, Jews exist there, Baha'is exist there, Berbers, Amazigh, Druze, you name it. And so when you're saying that the Arab people have not been allowed the right to have Arab supremacy because of Western imperialism, therefore we have to kill ourselves to gain that, you're actually proving the point for us.
Who said that they had to
That's
kill
not what I'm
themselves?
saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the situation in the Middle East has been fabricated by a Western hand. The reason why there's so much division and sectarian divide, and the reason why it didn't exist before the Sykes-Picot Agreement, is because, as Lawrence of Arabia put it, the man who was sent to the Middle East as a spy, is that we have successfully divided the Islamic bloc so that it doesn't reunite. The entire purpose, the reason why the Arabs, the reason why the Arab people view Israel with hostility as a nation of Israel, as a country, is because they view it, and that's why the Arab-Israeli war first began. They view it as a Western seat in the Middle East.
So how do you explain
kamikaze? Like Lebanon and Syria and Kuwait and
they
Iraq,
were influenced by Western civilization.
Well?
They were the
What do you
most
mean?
elite people and the most proper people in the world, and they still
I don't
had-
understand your question.
You know what kamikaze pilots
They
were?
had a culture of either all or nothing. It was
Right,
more,
but
it was
they still
considered
had
worse to be captured
but,
than to kill yourself.
Right, but
What
they
am I
still had
saying that's
suicide
wrong, though? What am I
concepts where
saying
they would
that's
kill
wrong?
themselves, and they didn't come from
Guys, I'm not
Western influence
I'm not,
like you're
I just want to
saying.
say, I'm not
By the
Is
way?
Lebanon and Syria, is
Well,
Lebanon
actually, there
and
was a
Syria
war
also
going
a
on
Western
Guys,
seat?
They
Is
started
it
but
also
they
a
just
Western
started
seat?
in the
Okay, hold on.
US, right?
They were all
Because
created by
Elika
the
is not
same
here, she
mandate.
can't hear us. Elika, 30 seconds. Finish your point. Go ahead, and we'll move on.
No, my point is that
Yes.
you cannot say that Israel is created by a Western or it's a Western
It is.
seat unless you say the exact same thing about Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Kuwait, and the rest of them.
No.
They were all
But
created
why
by
do you
Western
say that? Because from what I understand, all
okay,
those
I'll tell
countries
you why.
were founded, quote unquote, in the late 40s.
Let me tell you
48,
why I say
47,
that. Let me
49,
tell
they were
you-
all.
let me tell you-
So
Yes,
explain
let me
that.
tell you why I'm saying that.
Yes.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that. Okay, after there was the reason that there was no quote unquote instability before this is because there was one ruler, there was one rule, which was the caliphate, which ruled over the entire region, including all of these lands: Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, all of them.
And this was the Ottoman Empire.
When that collapsed, okay, in the early 1900s,
Why did it collapse?
right? That's when the Western powers went to the Middle East, not for selfless reasons. Yes, they were colonizing powers, okay? And these colonizing powers had their own interests, but they did create all of these borders. And all of these countries were created by the same Western hand. Therefore, you cannot single out the Jewish state and say this is the Western seat when all of these countries were created by the same Western powers.
No, because here you're missing a very important piece of history. The countries that you're talking about were split during the Sykes-Picot Agreement. The state of Israel was founded in 1948, so it's a completely different way by which Israel was created as a state. You're completely neglecting.
And it created itself.
Well, just
It
let me
created
finish.
itself.
No,
It
it did
didn't
not
even
create
come out of
itself.
the-
It did not create. The plan
It did
delayed the
create
massacre
itself.
of innocent civilians to displace 700,000 Arabs
It
by the
wasn't created
Haganah
by the
happened
British
before
mandate.
happened
It
1 week
created itself on
happened
the
1
last
month
day of the
before
mandate.
the Arab-Israeli war. You guys are completely neglecting the
What do you mean?
facts
What
from
about
your
the
own
pogroms?
representatives.
What about the Hebron pogrom? What do you mean? There were other pogroms in Israel and
I'm not talking about
Jerusalem and
pogroms. I'm
everybody
not talking about.
that
I'm
tried to
saying
push Jews
it's
away
not
from
my
Israel.
opinion. I'm not talking about my opinion.
Okay,
I'm giving you facts.
we're gonna actually go finish last point, and we're moving on to the next thing.
I just want to make one point if we zoom out for a second.
Sure.
The question that was asked that spurred this whole quote unquote history lesson was why, and the statistic was, if I'm not mistaken, 83% of Palestinians support suicide bombings. And your answer is, well, because they're a representative of the West and everything else you just put.
No,
because
that's not
Israel
what
is
I
the
said.
seat of the
That's not what I
West
said.
in the middle of the region. I just think that your response and the discussion that came is very telling, because the question was, why do they support suicide bombings? And that's the culture that was built by the Palestinian
Why?
leadership. Why? That's right. You're saying because
Why
Jews
is
were
it that
there.
the
Because
countries-
your
why is
answer
it
is
that the
because
countries
Jews
that
are. It's
support
the
suicide
bigotry
bombing are
of
neighboring
low
Israel? Why?
expectations against your own people.
Can I just
You're
ask a
saying
quick
that
follow-up?
because
Hold on.
you're saying that because there is a Jewish state on the land of Israel.
not because it's a Jewish state,
because there is a
though.
Jewish
It's not-
state in the
Judaism
land
doesn't
of
have
because there is a
anything
Jewish
apart-
state in the land of Israel. That is why 83% of Palestinians support, according to the stats that Adam put up,
'cause of
support
occupation.
suicide bombing. That's your
It's not
answer.
because of a Jewish
It's
state.
not
Can I,
about a
guys,
Jewish
am I-
It's very telling.
It's
It's
not
very
about a
telling.
Jewish
of a Jewish state.
appreciate
It's
your
not
answer.
a Jewish state, so
What is
stop
it?
referring
It
it
is
back
a
Yeah,
to
it's not
Jewish
even a
state.
Jewish
You
state.
guys
It
can
violates
keep
the
saying that.
Ketubot
Guys,
111a.
you guys can
It
keep
violates the
saying that.
messianic
You
age
can keep-
prophecy.
you guys
I
can-
just want to
violates-
follow up to something David
you guys
said
can keep-
really
Gabe,
quick,
Jewish
really
state,
quick.
man.
Of course,
Gabe.
it's a Jewish
It's not
Absolutely
a
is.
Jewish state. There's
What
a
is the
secular.
world
It's
Israel
the
mean?
people- the people.
What does the world Israel
No, now
mean?
you're using semantics. Who
What's
crea-
semantics? It's called
who-
Israel.
So what if it
Guys,
was
listen to
religious?
me.
What if it was
Who-
religious? What if it was built religiously? Would that be okay?
Well, if it
Let's
was
play
built on
devil's
the Torah,
advocate.
you wouldn't be killing innocent civilians.
We're not killing, we're
For the
defending
Okay,
it.
so
No, you're
pause.
not.
Thank you. Here we go.
yourselves from
Guys, we have about
excuse.
25 minutes left.
Wait, can I get my follow-up
No,
question?
no. Everyone's done.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. If you like that one, click right here to watch the full SOSCAST. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.